Every day you're making choices. But have you ever paused to ask who's really in control? Is it your ego, hungry for validation, power, and approval? Or your soul, quietly whispering wisdom, truth, and purpose? The ego shouts, the soul whispers. One drives you toward fear, pride, and competition. The other leads you into peace, love, and authenticity. Life becomes a battlefield between these two unseen forces. If you don't recognize who's leading, you're likely being dragged by the ego. It's time to wake up. Are you living from the loud demands of the ego, or the deep calling of your soul? The ego thrives on control, and it loves to create the illusion that it is the master of your life. It operates like a cunning puppeteer, pulling strings without you even realizing it. Its language is fear, pride, comparison, and the constant hunger for recognition. The ego convinces you that your worth is tied to external validation, achievements, and the approval of others. It whispers in your mind that you must always be better, richer, stronger, or more admired than others to truly matter. Yet this need is a trap that can never be fully satisfied. The more you chase it, the more it slips away, keeping you in a constant state of anxiety and restlessness. The ego feeds on fear. The fear of not being enough, of being rejected, of failing. It builds walls around you, telling you that if you show your real self, you will be hurt or humiliated. This fear-driven control keeps you small, playing roles that aren't truly yours, hiding your true essence behind masks of perfectionism, arrogance, or false humility. The ego paints a picture of a world where everyone is a rival, where life is a competition you must win at all costs. It sees others either as threats or tools, never equals or companions on a shared journey. This breeds comparison and jealousy, poisoning relationships and robbing you of genuine connection. Instead of celebrating your unique path, you find yourself obsessing over what others have, feeling inferior or superior based on shallow measures of success. Pride is another weapon the ego wields skillfully. It makes you believe you are self-made, that you alone are responsible for your achievements, inflating your sense of importance while secretly making you fragile. Any criticism feels like an attack. Any failure feels like the end of your identity. You become a slave to your image, living not for your growth but for maintaining a facade that wins applause. The ego's pride is brittle. It cannot handle loss, rejection, or vulnerability. It tells you to hide your flaws, deny your weaknesses, and always appear strong, even when you are breaking inside. Control is the ego's obsession. It makes you think that if you can just control circumstances, people, and outcomes, you will be safe and happy. But this is a lie. Life by its nature is uncertain, unpredictable, and uncontrollable. Yet the ego hates uncertainty. It pushes you to manipulate, dominate, or withdraw when things don't go your way. This constant struggle for control creates stress, anxiety, and a deep sense of insecurity. Even when you succeed in controlling something temporarily, the satisfaction fades quickly, replaced by the next fear or challenge. You remain trapped in a cycle of grasping and resisting, never truly at peace. The ego also loves to assign labels to yourself, to others, and to the world. It tells you who you are based on your job, your status, your appearance, or your achievements. It locks you into identities like successful, failure, winner, loser, worthy, or unworthy. These labels become prisons that limit your potential and distort your self-perception. The ego convinces you that you are your reputation, your possessions, or your accolades. If you lose them, it feels like losing your very self. And so you become chained to a fragile sense of identity that can shatter at any moment. One of the most dangerous illusions the ego creates is the idea of separation. It makes you believe you are isolated, alone, and disconnected from others and from life itself. This illusion breeds loneliness, selfishness, and a hunger for dominance or superiority. The ego tells you that life is a battlefield, that you must fight for your place, guard your resources, and protect your image at all costs. It blinds you to the deeper truth that you are part of something far greater, a shared humanity, a collective journey, a universal life force that connects all beings. The illusion of separation creates walls of fear and mistrust that prevent true love, empathy, and community. The ego also resists change. It clings to the known, even if the known is painful or limiting. It tells you that stepping into the unknown is dangerous, that letting go of old patterns will make you weak or vulnerable. This resistance keeps you stuck in cycles of fear, addiction, unhealthy relationships, or self-sabotage. The ego fears growth because growth threatens its control. It prefers the comfort of the familiar, even when the familiar is toxic. This resistance keeps you small, fearful, and trapped in a life that doesn't reflect your true potential. Another way the ego exerts control is through perfectionism. It sets impossible standards and then criticizes you relentlessly when you fall short. It makes you afraid to try new things, take risks, or show your authentic self because you fear failure or judgment. This perfectionism paralyzes you, making you a prisoner of your own unrealistic expectations. It turns every mistake into a catastrophe, and every imperfection into a personal flaw. Instead of embracing growth, learning, and self-compassion, you live in fear of not being perfect enough. The ego thrives on creating stories. Stories about who you are, what you deserve, and how the world works. These stories are often negative, limiting, or self-centered. They become mental scripts that play over and over, shaping your beliefs and behavior. You might hear the story that you're not good enough, that no one truly loves you, or that success is only for others. These stories, though often untrue, become self-fulfilling prophecies. The ego doesn't care if the stories make you miserable. It only cares that you stay within its control. It would rather keep you trapped in suffering than risk losing its grip on your mind. Perhaps the most subtle and dangerous aspect of the ego is that it often disguises itself as confidence, strength, or even wisdom. It can wear the mask of spiritual pride, moral superiority, or false humility. You may think you've transcended the ego, only to discover it has crept back in through the back door of your mind, disguised as virtue or enlightenment. This false sense of superiority is a clever tactic the ego uses to keep control, making you blind to your own blind spots and resistant to real growth. The illusion of control that the ego offers is deeply seductive because it promises safety, certainty, and importance. But it is a hollow promise. The more you try to control life, the more anxious and disconnected you feel. The ego's control is a cage, comfortable at times, but still a cage. True freedom comes not from feeding the ego's demands, but from recognizing its illusions and stepping beyond them. The first step is awareness, seeing the ego's patterns for what they are. Once you start noticing how often fear, pride, comparison, and control dictate your choices, you begin to loosen the grip they have on your life. The ego loses power the moment you shine the light of awareness on it. It thrives in the dark, in the unconscious parts of your mind. But when you become conscious of its tricks, you gain the power to choose differently. You stop reacting from fear and start responding from wisdom. You stop competing and start connecting. You stop controlling and start trusting. The ego's illusion of control dissolves when you awaken to the deeper truth that you were never meant to be controlled by fear, pride, or comparison. You were meant to be free. The soul does not force, demand, or control. Unlike the ego that shouts, the soul whispers quietly within you, waiting patiently for you to listen. It does not crave attention or recognition, because it is not driven by fear or pride. The soul knows its worth and understands that its existence is not dependent on external validation. It speaks the language of wisdom, compassion, love, and deep truth. The soul is your truest self, untouched by the noise of the world, uncorrupted by the constant chase for status, power, or approval. When you begin to listen to this inner voice, you discover a guidance that is subtle yet profoundly powerful, a voice that leads you toward your highest potential, not by force, but by aligning you with your authentic self. The soul sees life differently from the ego. While the ego divides and compares, the soul unites and connects. It recognizes the sacredness of all life, seeing every person as a reflection of the same universal essence. The soul does not see enemies, rivals, or competitors. It sees brothers, sisters, fellow travelers on the same journey. This perspective brings a profound sense of peace, belonging, and compassion. Where the ego judges and criticizes, the soul accepts and embraces. It does not mean the soul is blind to wrong or harm, but it sees beyond the surface to the deeper truth that every person is fighting battles unseen, and that love and understanding have the power to heal wounds the ego only deepens. The soul operates in alignment with truth. While the ego manipulates and deceives to protect its fragile image, the soul stands firm in honesty and integrity. It does not twist reality to fit its desires. The soul accepts what is, even when it is painful, because it knows that truth is the foundation of real freedom. The soul does not fear vulnerability, because it understands that to be vulnerable is to be real. It invites you to show up as you are, without masks or pretenses. In this space of authenticity, you experience real connection with yourself, with others, and with life itself. The wisdom of the soul often comes as a quiet knowing, a sense that something is right or wrong, even when you cannot explain it logically. This intuition is not based on fear or wishful thinking, but on a deep inner clarity. The soul guides you through this inner compass, pointing you toward choices that may not always seem easy, but are true to your essence. It nudges you toward paths that honor your integrity, your calling, and your higher good. Unlike the ego, which screams for immediate gratification, the soul often leads you through patience, trust, and surrender. It teaches you that some of the most meaningful journeys require time, perseverance, and faith in the unseen. Compassion is the natural expression of a soul-led life. When the soul is in charge, you begin to see the world with softer eyes. You feel the pain of others, not as a burden, but as a shared human experience. You are no longer quick to judge or dismiss, because you recognize the common thread of humanity that binds us all. This compassion does not make you weak. It makes you stronger in love, in understanding, and in the ability to bridge divides that the ego cannot. Compassion opens the heart, allowing you to serve, to forgive, and to stand with others in their struggles, not from a place of superiority, but from shared dignity. The soul also leads with purpose. It is deeply connected to why you are here. Beyond roles, titles, or achievements, your soul knows that your existence has meaning that cannot be measured by worldly standards. When you listen to this inner guide, you begin to align with a purpose that fills your life with direction and depth. This purpose is not always grand or recognized by others, but it resonates deeply within you. It might be in the way you love your family, serve your community, create beauty, or speak truth. The soul teaches that purpose is lived in the small, daily choices as much as in the big decisions. Living from the soul means living on purpose, with intention, and with a sense of sacred responsibility to the gift of life. Another hallmark of the soul is peace. Unlike the restless, anxious nature of the ego, the soul is anchored in a profound inner calm. This peace is not dependent on circumstances. It remains steady even in the midst of chaos, because it comes from a place deeper than external situations. The soul knows that you are part of something eternal, something far greater than any temporary success or failure. When you rest in this awareness, fear begins to lose its grip. You no longer react from panic or desperation, but respond with calm assurance, knowing that whatever comes, you are held by something larger than yourself. The power of the soul is also seen in its humility. The soul has nothing to prove, no image to protect, no need to be better than anyone else. It allows you to stand confidently in who you are, while remaining open to growth, learning, and correction. True humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. It frees you from the exhausting cycle of comparison and competition, allowing you to celebrate others without diminishing your own light. In this humility, you find the strength to admit when you are wrong, to forgive others, and to move forward without resentment or bitterness. The soul does not resist change. It flows with the rhythms of life, understanding that growth requires letting go, surrendering, and trusting the process. Where the ego fears the unknown, the soul embraces it as part of a larger journey. This openness allows you to adapt, to evolve, and to face life's uncertainties with grace. Change becomes not a threat, but an invitation to discover new depths of who you are and who you are becoming. The soul sees life as a continuous unfolding, a sacred dance between the known and the unknown, the seen and the unseen. Living by the guidance of the soul requires courage. The courage to go against the current of ego-driven culture, to listen to your inner truth even when it's unpopular, and to trust the quiet wisdom within you more than the loud opinions around you. This courage is not reckless or rebellious, but deeply rooted in love and authenticity. It empowers you to make choices that align with your highest values, even when they cost you comfort or approval. The soul's courage is gentle but unyielding, strong but compassionate, firm but open-hearted. When the soul leads, you begin to live a life of harmony. Your thoughts, words, and actions align with your deepest values. You no longer live in the exhausting tug-of-war between who you are and who you pretend to be. This harmony brings a sense of joy, not because everything is perfect, but because you are living true. Joy becomes your natural state, flowing from within, untouched by fleeting circumstances. You discover that real happiness is not found in what you achieve, possess, or control, but in who you become when you live from the soul. The silent power of the soul is the most transformative force within you. It does not shout, but when you listen, it speaks louder than the noise of the world. It does not demand control, but when you follow, it guides you to a life of deeper meaning, peace, and fulfillment. The soul invites you to come home to yourself, not the self shaped by ego and fear, but the self rooted in love, wisdom, and truth. In choosing to listen to this quiet inner guide, you find the freedom, purpose, and peace that no external power can offer. The soul's power is not in dominance, but in the quiet, unshakable presence that reminds you of who you truly are. Inside every human being, there exists a constant, silent battle that often goes unnoticed, a battle between the ego and the soul. This is not a war fought with weapons or loud confrontations, but rather a subtle, ongoing tension within the mind and heart. The ego, always loud and demanding, tries to pull you toward fear, pride, and control. The soul, gentle and persistent, calls you toward truth, love, and peace. Every decision you make, every reaction you have, and every thought that crosses your mind is touched by this invisible conflict. Recognizing this battle is the first step to understanding yourself and making conscious choices about who is truly leading your life. Most people live their lives unaware of this internal struggle. They move through their days reacting to situations without questioning the voice inside their head that drives them. When someone offends them, they feel anger and respond in defense. When they face failure, they feel shame and withdraw. When praised, they feel inflated with pride. All these reactions often stem from the ego's grip, that relentless part of the mind that demands recognition, control, and superiority. The ego tells you that you must always protect your image, win every argument, prove your worth, and avoid anything that makes you look weak. Yet beneath these demands lies fear, the fear of being seen as less, of being rejected, of not mattering. The ego masks this fear with arrogance, defensiveness, and comparison, creating a constant state of inner unrest. On the other hand, the soul does not react with fear or pride. It does not care about superficial victories or social status. When you listen closely, you will notice that the soul invites you to respond with understanding, to forgive, to act with integrity, even when it costs you, and to choose love over ego-driven pride. However, because the soul speaks softly, it is often drowned out by the loud, anxious voice of the ego. You may feel a quiet nudge telling you to apologize, to be honest, or to let go of resentment, but the ego quickly steps in with its loud reasoning, warning you that you will lose respect, be taken advantage of, or appear weak. This internal push and pull happens countless times a day, often without your awareness. Becoming aware of this inner battle means learning to observe your thoughts and feelings without immediately acting on them. It means noticing when your reactions are driven by fear of judgment, by the need to prove yourself, or by the desire to control. It means recognizing when you are making choices based on your true values or simply following the ego's demands. For example, when you feel the urge to criticize someone harshly, ask yourself, is this coming from my soul or my ego? When you want to show off your success or put someone down subtly, pause and ask, who is speaking here? The ego always pushes you toward separation, making you feel superior or inferior, keeping you trapped in a cycle of comparison and competition. The soul, however, always moves you toward connection, understanding, and truth. The struggle between ego and soul becomes most evident in moments of challenge, failure, or conflict. When you fail at something important, the ego screams that you are a loser, that you should give up, that your worth is tied to success. The soul whispers that failure is a teacher, that your value is inherent, and that growth often comes through setbacks. In moments of conflict, the ego demands that you defend yourself, attack the other person, and protect your pride. The soul invites you to seek understanding, to listen, and to prioritize the relationship over being right. In these moments, the choice between following the ego or the soul determines whether you act out of fear or love. Another layer of this inner battle is how you perceive yourself and others. The ego constantly pushes you to define yourself by external standards. Your job, your achievements, your social status. It creates a false identity based on roles and images, making you cling tightly to how others see you. The soul reminds you that you are far more than these temporary labels. It calls you to see yourself and others as inherently valuable, beyond achievements or failures. This shift in perception is not easy, because the ego resists letting go of control. It fears losing its identity and power. But once you start recognizing this pattern, you begin to free yourself from the exhausting need to prove, impress, or defend. The battle also plays out in your inner dialogue, the constant stream of thoughts running through your mind. The ego's voice often sounds like harsh criticism, doubt, fear, or endless comparison. It tells you that you are not good enough, that others are better, that you must always be on guard. The soul's voice, in contrast, is quiet, calm, and encouraging. It speaks of your innate worth, your capacity for love, and your connection to something greater than yourself. The more you become aware of these two voices, the more you can choose which one to follow. Awareness does not eliminate the ego, but it reduces its power over you. Choosing to listen to the soul does not mean you will never feel fear, pride, or the desire to control. These are natural human tendencies. The difference is that with awareness, You can notice these impulses and decide not to act on them. You can feel the ego's pull without letting it dictate your choices. This practice of inner observation builds a kind of spiritual muscle, the ability to pause, reflect, and choose consciously, rather than react automatically. Over time, this creates a shift in how you experience life. You begin to move from a state of reactivity to a state of presence. This inner battle is not about eliminating the ego entirely, as that is neither possible nor necessary. The ego has its place. It helps you navigate the world, set boundaries, and protect yourself when needed. The problem arises when the ego dominates your life unchecked, leading you away from your true self. The goal is not to destroy the ego, but to put it in its rightful place, as a servant to your higher self, not the master of your life. The soul should be the guiding force, with the ego serving as a tool for healthy functioning in the world. Recognizing the battle within also helps you cultivate empathy for others. When you see how often you struggle with your own ego, you begin to understand that others are fighting the same invisible battle. This awareness softens your heart, making you less quick to judge and more willing to forgive. You realize that behind every harsh word, defensive act, or prideful display is often a person struggling with their own fears and insecurities. This understanding deepens your compassion and strengthens your connection with others. Letting go of control is another crucial step in choosing the soul over the ego. The ego clings tightly to outcomes, needing things to go a certain way to feel secure or superior. It resists uncertainty and tries to manipulate situations and people to fit its agenda. The soul, by contrast, trusts the flow of life. It knows that surrender is not weakness, but a deep wisdom that allows life to unfold naturally. Letting go of control means accepting that you cannot force everything to go your way and that you do not need to. It means trusting that even when things do not happen as you planned, there is a greater wisdom at work. This surrender brings peace and opens you up to experiences and growth that the ego's rigid control would never allow. Forgiveness is also a profound act of choosing the soul over the ego. The ego holds grudges, nurtures resentment, and insists on being right. It thrives on the narrative of victim and offender, keeping you locked in anger or bitterness. The soul, however, seeks healing and release. Forgiveness is not about condoning wrongdoing, but about freeing yourself from the chains of the past. It is a decision to let go of the ego's need for revenge or justice, and instead embrace the soul's desire for peace and wholeness. Forgiving others and yourself dismantles the ego's power and opens your heart to compassion and understanding. Choosing the soul over the ego is a lifelong journey. It is not about perfection or never making mistakes, but about consistently returning to the path of love, truth, and authenticity whenever you stray. It is about creating habits of awareness, reflection,